So the MPP convention. Okay. So I'm gonna give everybody a chance to speak what they thought because I think we might all have different opinions, obviously. But for me, the good was I think that the convention brought a lot of people together with different views to discuss many issues that the American people are facing and many policies that people want to either push or people want changed. And among some of the strongest voices were independent media. People like Chris Hedges, people like Jimmy Dore, people like Niko, people like Ron Placone and Graham Elwood. I mean, those are our family, and I'm so happy
Yeah.
that they were able to bring
Jamal
up.
Thomas too.
I'm sorry. Oh,
Jamal
Jamal
Thomas
Thomas,
too.
the progressive
You gave
soapbox.
it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, there were so many people that spoke, and of course, I'm gonna start out with the independent media. Some of the big one that spoke was Chris Hedges. I'm a huge fan of Chris Hedges. I believe he understands really what's at stake here. I believe he understands that Donald Trump is exploiting the system which Joe Biden created. And I think he really knocked it out of the ballpark. This is a long clip, so we'll stop it early, but let's just watch a little bit of what he says because it was fire.
Is only one choice in this election, and that is the consolidation of oligarchic power under Donald Trump or the consolidation of oligarchic power under Joe Biden. The oligarchs with Trump or Biden will win again, and we will lose. The oligarchs made it abundantly clear, should Bernie Sanders have miraculously become the Democratic Party nominee, they would join forces with the Republicans to crush him. The oligarchs preach the mantra of the least worst to us when they attempt to ram a Hillary Clinton or a Joe Biden down our throats, but ignore it for themselves. They prefer Biden over Trump, but they can live with either. Only one thing matters to the oligarchs. It is not democracy. It is not truth. It is not the consent of the governed. It is not income inequality. It is not the surveillance state. It is not endless war. It is not jobs. It is not the climate breakdown. It is the primacy of corporate power, which has extinguished our democracy and left most of the working class and the working poor in misery, as well as the continued increase and consolidation of their wealth. It is impossible to work within the system to shatter the hegemony of oligarchic power or institute meaningful reform. Change, real change, will only come by sustained acts of mass civil disobedience and mobilization, as with the Yellow Vest movement in France and the British-based Extinction Rebellion.
Okay, can we stop?
The longer...
I just want to point out, this is something I have been screaming at the top of my lungs that directly also relates to MPP. Change isn't going to come from the electorate, you guys. It can only after masses of people get out on the streets and demand that change, because we're in a system that's corrupt. So if you try to change things within that system, you're only going to fix little band-aid solutions. You're not really going after the core problem. So people that say vote for Joe Biden, they're only putting a band-aid on something, in my opinion, not even a band-aid, maybe making it worse, because they're not addressing the whole problem. You can't fix a system by working within it. You have to go outside of it to destroy the system, stop playing the game. And that this is what he was calling out for. And this is why I really greatly admire Chris Hedges, because he is able to see exactly the things we as the left or the independent or the people, the working people of the United States have to do in order to get things passed. Pasta, Jonny, anything to say on what Chris said?
Good, Jonny.
Okay, Pasta.
Well, you know me. I've talked about Chris's commercial when the letters come up as he's doing his speech. I felt like it was like one of those moments. The guy, he can just nail it, and he speaks such a great truth to as well. We did a show not too long ago, settle for Trump over settle for Biden. We talk about it and stuff like that. Or settle for no one. So at the very least, I like the fact that Chris Hedges is telling people, hey, man, you don't have to be vote shamed or bullied into voting for Joe Biden here. And I bet if maybe Chris Hedges gun to the head, he might be Biden over Trump, where I'm Trump over Biden. But at the end of the day, he gives us the strength to say, hey, we don't have to play into any of this shit. Maybe another 40% of people voting, eligible voters only voting, will really shock us and get us into the streets. And I'd like to see something like that. The only problem is that two parties are in the street at each other rather than together, focused at one. And that's what his message is. It's one and the same, ladies and gentlemen. It's one and the same.
Exactly.
Did you want to play some more of the clip or?
No.
No.
Okay.
So then at the end he says that he's gonna go vote. He tells everybody to vote for Green Party.
He does. Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out there.
Well, that ain't happening either.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, I think the idea is to get the Greens to 5%, and I totally understand where some people are coming from with that. I'm still undecided because part of me is like, I do want to get the Greens to 5%, but I also really like Mark Charles, and I really love Gloria La Riva. So I'm voting third party. I'm not 100% decided as to what. I'm leaning towards Peace and Freedom / Gloria La Riva or Mark Charles. I'm voting Gloria. But I really would love to see like Mark Charles, Gloria La Riva 2020 or whatever. Like that. Those are the kind of candidates I'm looking for as well. And I think the Green Party. We can talk about parties once we talk more about the MPP structure, but there's a lot of work to be done. I fall in line with a lot of the Green Party's policies, but there's a lot of work to be done in general with third parties. But just moving ahead, Cornel West, Marianne Williamson, and Nina Turner were also among the most intense speakers. All of them, however, have said they were going to vote for Biden, although Cornel and Nina kind of weren't really preaching for people to vote for Biden. Marianne a little bit differently, but I did want to hear a little bit of Nina Turner's speech because, as usual, she is a phenomenal speaker and really knows how to get you riled up. I mean, she really knows she has a way with her words.
Thank you, Nick, so very much. Lord have mercy, I'm on all types of fire right now. I just want to take a moment. In the Black church tradition, and Dr. West, you're going to pick up on this real, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. This has been a redeeming, hello, somebody. This has been a redeeming afternoon through the evening here on the East Coast. As Dr. West said, from the beginning of this People's Convention to this very moment, different voices have been able to be lifted up. Salute to you, Brother Nick, to the sisters who helped you put this on, to Brother Ryan. And I got a news flash for folks. Not one speaker was told what to say and what not to say. Hello, somebody. See, that's why you got a variety here tonight of people who have different views on how to move this nation forward. But what we do agree on, even if folks don't necessarily agree on what should happen in 2020, what we do agree on is that we are in a fight for our lives and for future generations, and that we stand up for what is just, for what is right, and for what is good. See, nobody scripted here tonight. Nobody got a memo. Nobody was whispered in the ear. Nobody was told what to say, what to do, or what to think. So we are a representation of what America is. You know what? I just threw out my whole speech because every single speaker, baby, when you're giving the benediction, you just got to go on and give the benediction. That's what this time is, just go on and give the benediction. Because everybody did that. Just beautiful. And Sister Marianne, Lord, don't let me start naming names because everybody did that. You know what came to mind for me, sisters and brothers, and I wasn't going to read this poem, but as I was listening to folks, two people came to mind. One was Marvin Gaye, What's Going On? And then the other one was a poem that Langston Hughes wrote, and I believe he wrote it in 1938, and he was talking about the pain of Jim Crow and what was happening in this nation. And it's titled Kids Who Die. And I just want you, just wrap your mind around this just for a moment. Can we just take a moment? Because it is as if Brother Langston Hughes is talking about this very moment. See, I'm full right now. This is Sunday, and I am feeling all kinds of spiritual ways right now. Kids who die. This is for the kids who die. Black and white, for kids will die, certainly. The old and the rich will live on a while, as always, eating blood and gold, letting kids die. Kids will die in the swamps of Mississippi, organizing sharecroppers. Kids will die in the streets of Chicago, organizing workers. Kids will die in the orange groves of California, telling others to get together. Whites and Filipinos, Negroes and Mexicans, all kinds of kids will die who don't believe in lies and bribes and contentment and a lousy peace. Yep. Hello, somebody. See, this poem.
Yeah. So she goes on to talk about, you know, how can we be peaceful when we have all of this crap going on? And you know, like I said, she has a way with her words, and she did make a point that I thought was really strong. Because if you look at the DNC and the Democratic Convention and how they performed, and then you look at the RNC and you look at how they performed, these people all had an agenda, a narrative that they were trying to spin. At the very least, I was going to say the poor people's, the People's Convention was entirely different in that sense. People were allowed to speak their mind. Like I said, I didn't agree with a lot of the speakers. I agree with Nina Turner in a lot of things. You know, I'm not voting for Joe Biden, but I still respect her. I respect what she's saying, and I respect what Cornel West said, and I can respect where they're coming from. But it is that ability to have these discussions that I think they did a great job on bringing people together to have those discussions.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we needed right there. What she talked about, you know. It was diversity. She was going right across the board. She was talking about children. You know, she's talking about everything. I'm a little upset that they're missing the point right now, that this is the time to really, really, really crush the Democratic Party. Right now is when we should be taking a stance and going, you know what? F you. I'm definitely not going to vote for you. You're not going to force us to vote for anybody anymore. And if it costs us to losing to Donald Trump for another 4 years, then so be it. The ends don't justify the means again to vote for Joe Biden. I mean, the whole thing is sick. And you can, once again, you can dislike Donald Trump up and down. I mean, Joe Biden, and I know we're going to get to this later, fam. I don't want to jump the gun, but holy shit, where is this guy at?
Yeah, we're going to
mentally.
talking
I don't want to
about
jump the gun, but I mean, and I really wish they would embrace this time right now. I mean, this is the time to splinter the Democratic establishment so badly. If they lose right now, and they should lose, because when they say, well, you guys going to go out and vote for Donald Trump, you say, you guys going to go out to vote to stop Donald Trump? You say, yep. We're no longer going to do that no more. From now on, you know, plain and simple, you will never hold our vote hostage again. You will never force us to vote against something. You will only get our vote when you bring something to the table and give us something to vote for, period.
And you had something that you wanted to bring up about the Postal Service?
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny because the other day I was hanging out with my man, Tim Canova. I got some shirts for you guys if you want them. And we were talking about the Postal Service, whatnot like that. We were talking about this particular bill. And this is something of what I really like what the People's Convention did right over here, bringing on this particular person. Not because they're fingering the Democrats or fingering the Republicans and whatnot, but they talk about policy and how it affects things and whatnot, because there's a different story being told right now from both sides in Congress and the hearing that's going on, and what Nancy Pelosi had done to try to bring Mr. Louis DeJoy in there to talk about things. But, you know, I mean, the reason why he ate the Democrats up is because the Democrats, they obfuscate, fam, right? They only tell a partial story. Is that a wrong way to use it? They didn't tell the story about Nick. Back in 2009 and 2006 when they made these laws and they put them into play, which really, really crippled the post office. And I want to put this particular guy on. He was a postmaster of sorts in Vermont. And he's going to talk about this one law real quick, which is really the reason why the post office every year is going through a serious issue, why they have to fire people and why they are not allowed to grow. And even the fact that the reason over the last several years, they would have actually shown a profit. But this law that goes way, way back, way before Donald Trump was even around, way before friggin', you know, this whole administration was running things, Louis DeJoy and this whole mentality. Take a look. I got about a minute and 18 seconds just to talk about this one specific law, which is really the reason why the post office is having trouble today.
The Congress wanted to do an analysis to see how the Postal Service was doing. They wanted to see how badly we were doing. But what did they find out instead? They found out that the Postal Service overpaid retirement. Some people say 75 billion, some people say 100 billion have been overpaid during that time. Now, right after that, they came out with a law called the PAEA. This law, passed in 2006 by a lame duck session of Congress by both parties, is what put the concrete around our necks to try to drown us. We still have been surviving because you have been out there supporting us. This law, if it wasn't for this law that makes us pay 75 years in advance of retirement, if it wasn't for that law, the Postal Service would have operating profits in the last 6 years. I'm going to repeat that again. If it wasn't for this PAEA law that was passed, we would have 6 years of profits, and no one would be able to say that the Postal Service was not doing well.
There you go. You know what I'm saying? And I just had a little article up. I'm really not going to get into it, but it pretty much just solidifies what the man says, that at this point, and the law was signed into play in 2006. By 2009, they didn't have the money to do this. In other words, they had to have 75 years of funding in the bank for retirees. So basically, they're making you put money in the bank to fund retirees that aren't even hired yet. Some retirees that aren't even born yet. You know what I'm saying? This was done in a lame duck session. The House pushed it through. The Senate pushed it through. It went through. And right now, this makes the post office cut their budget every single friggin' year. And it was Democrats as well as Republicans. So when they sit there and say Democrats are trying to just kneecap and defund the post office, they're lying. Because yes, the Republicans are, but the Democrats are riding shotgun, fam. And this is something I like that was spoken about right now, because at this time when things are going on, especially when it comes to our voting, and there was only one person really to talk about election integrity, right? I think there was one person, fam.
Yeah,
right?
One person. So. Unfortunately, it was the only one. But that was Nico House. And we were really happy that he was able to address it. And we're gonna watch this video. But I was happy to see Ron and Graham give also really great speeches. There, like I said, there are fam. So let's just go ahead and play. Hey fams, let's go play Nico's some of Nico's video.
And maybe I will vote for the person who had a very strict anti-war stance, a stance that is not only anti-war, but is actually a stance of peace. Which one of those candidates and which one of those parties represent that? Out of curiosity, are any of the choices you're offering me declining money from the largest lobbying group in the country, AIPAC, in favor of speaking up for the Palestinians who are literally dying under the current circumstances of an apartheid government? Which one of those candidates are speaking up about the open market slavery that we're seeing in Libya as a result of one of the candidates' administration? Which one of those candidates in a time of a pandemic is pushing for the most popular policy choice in the country, which is Medicare for all? Which one of those candidates is supporting that? Which one of those candidates in a time of a pandemic is pushing for the solutions that have already been made available overseas, like one that Cuba invented, that has actually led to them defeating, essentially, the COVID-19 virus? Which one of those candidates is denying corporate money and corporate super PACs? Which one of those candidates are speaking up about election integrity and fighting tooth and nail every single day to make sure my vote counts, rather than making a partisan mockery of our vote simply to push their own personal party's agenda? Which one of those candidates is going to speak up for myself as a Black male, not only when it's convenient when they're running for office, but actually putting their money where their mouth is and putting pen to paper for policy that benefits everyone rather than just the 1% in the elite? And the truth is, when I tell people that, they can't believe that those are the only options left. And you know how you make sure that these are not the only options left in 2 years, in 4 years, etc.? Then you organize now behind a party that is based its entire platform strictly on the issues rather than personality. See, the People's Party has been different in that regard, if you haven't noticed. There's no personality to get behind. There's no cult of a personality to get behind. The only cult that you can join is a cult of the issues. See, I know my history. And
Awesome. So there you go. I mean, he pretty much touched on every point, right? Like which one of these candidates is giving us anything? None of them. Okay, great. So why are you going to stay in the Democratic Party? Why are you going to continue to support a lesser of evils for some hope that maybe one of them will be better than the other or less evil, when you really don't have any hope on that? And the fact that he mentioned election integrity as short as it was is a big deal. And I think we need to be talking more about election integrity at length, because if our elections, and this is my point that I'm going to bring up later, our elections aren't fair. We don't have a valid election system. Any new party, including the People's Party, that's running their candidates is going to run into the same exact problems that already affect parties with already ballot access, like the Green Party, like the Socialist Liberation Party, like the Peace and Freedom Party, all these parties that can't get enough people in them, including the Libertarian Party, are facing the issue of election integrity. So if we're going to start a new party and we haven't tackled election integrity in any way, if we haven't made people aware, if we haven't made people actually pay attention to it, any party, no matter how perfect and how wonderful and how many great people it has in it, is still going to run into those same issues. And so again, I say electoral politics is a very minimal way of making change, especially during this time. People need to organize outside of it. And so that's my whole thing. You want election integrity? We need to demand election integrity.
Yeah, I mean, at least get in the streets, demand a 100% audit with a paper trail or paper ballot is what they say. I just want to quote Glory Jones as she's on the chat here. You should be on the Rokfin chat, Glory. Go over there with all those other peeps. You get a provisional. You get a provisional. You get a provisional. Like Oprah, we all get provisionals. And that's what's going on right now. One of the things that was disheartening about the whole Jen Perlman campaign was the fact that is like really she didn't have a serious mechanism to go and challenge these elections. Not that it's that she didn't want to, that unless you get within a certain percentage, you have to fund your own recount, and that's just damn near impossible. And she didn't have that money. And you know damn well they would cheat her outside of the margin in which the state has to pick up the tab for a audit that comes into play that you're allowed to trigger, where you don't have to pay out of your pocket. But the system is rigged. The voting system sucks. And this is the times like we do have to get out in the streets. We have to have thousands of people at the registrar's office or his friggin' house, and I don't give a shit, demanding what we get. At least bring public attention to it. You know, if we get an audit of sorts, you know, that would be good too. But there's so many different ways to screw these elections, you know, and a lot of people aren't even paying attention to it. You know, we talk about the whole mail-in thing. You know, the Democrats went off, and now they got this whole rhetoric that Donald Trump is trying to steal the election by sacking the post office when nobody's even paying attention. And Johnny knows. Johnny's read those contracts. You looked at them, fam, about who gets handle everything from the printing, the storing, the data processing, the fact that these are not like really sophisticated pieces of paper that anybody can make them, you know, and they go right to the registrar, you know, or right to this, what is it, the SOE? Secretary of Elections, you know what I'm saying? It's like the checks and balances are not there.
There's no checks and balances.
Transparency.
There's no transparency. There's none of that. And nobody cares. That's the thing. And any party, like I said, is going to run into the same exact issue. Why do you think they're just going to let you have it? You think they're just going to let you win? That's not going to happen. And that's one of my criticisms of that is like, we need people to be out there, different segments of people fighting for different causes. Now, because we're on Niko really quick, I just want to point out Walter Bragman, and I usually don't get involved in these things. Walker, sorry. I don't even know his name. Walker Bragman, I think is his name. Called Niko a conspiracy theorist. Say, if you're gonna have a convention, blah blah blah. Because Niko has said things that that have been considered conspiracy. We have been called conspiracy theorists by the Bernie campaign official, like the state director, director, or the Los Angeles director, because we talk about election integrity. And it's like, it's ridiculous. It is gaslighting. It is CIA talking points to call somebody a conspiracy theorist because they bring up things that you don't talk about, because they question things. You should question everything. Like everything right now, because we're in this age where people can make shit up, and you have to check and fact check and really like hone in to see what's real and what isn't. And so when you're calling someone a conspiracy theorist just because you're angry or for whatever, you have some personal thing, you can criticize the convention, and we're going to go over some areas of opportunity and some areas that I felt were lacking in a minute. But like, you're a journalist. He's a commentator. Like, you're on the same team here. We're against the establishment, I thought. So
come on, dude. Not this dude. This guy was a Warren stan too as well.
But there you go. There you go. I mean, it's ridiculous in this age where, we're like, if you're really going to call yourself a progressive, please don't like go and malign a person that is speaking on such important issues. Nothing Niko said is false. I mean, everything, he hit the nail on every single thing that was said. And I think that, just going there is really bad. But I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was dumb.
And he's pushing people to vote for Biden. Like you just said, you pushed Warren hard in the primary. Nobody has any reason to trust your view of third parties. You're also a Dementor dude who fought hard against third parties.
Right.
And it was an F off Bragman, right, to begin with. No?
Yeah. And so, Fams, Johnny, anything to say, or you're good?
Maybe he wants to read the super chat contribution from Steve Wilbrandt, who says, why wasn't the Convo Couch on the MPP Convention? Just curious.
I'm curious
too, brother. Curious too. But that's not why, in saying that's,
no.
I mean, we're there to talk about certain issues, and we'll get into that stuff. There's the stuff that was forgotten and the stuff that was really misdirected. We're going to get in, and that's why we have our criticisms and stuff. And I think it's important to point out right here, right now, is that you're talking to a team right now that just isn't commentators, but we get out there in the streets. My partner, Fam, no matter how many times or whatever we say or what goes on, nobody should ever doubt the reach she has when it comes to coordinators. You guys learned this in the last election. She can go to any state and any primary, know people and whatnot. She knows organizers. She was an organizer first. So I just want to point that out, Fam, and go on into that next subject.
So one of the things that a lot of our friends who are really big on civil liberties, who are really big on freedom of speech, as they should be, as every American should be, it is not a right-wing argument. In fact, it is very sad that oftentimes the right is actually paying more attention to these things, and it has been a connotation somehow by a lot of the neo-progressive left that only people on the right care about civil liberties. I mean, I think there is a way to go about it where we are inclusive and we don't make one issue more important than the other. I think people have different priorities depending on who you are, but Assange was never mentioned at all at the People's Convention. And to me, that is ludicrous, considering that they had a bunch of indie media. They had, I think, Status Quo, Hard Lens, other indie media pretty much sharing the stream. Imagine if YouTube said, you know what, we're going to take this down. This goes against that. That could have happened, you guys. And that is so important because nobody would have heard all of the things that people said, all of the great, wonderful things people were talking about. And to not mention Julian Assange, to me, is a sin. And I know Niko apologized because he didn't mention it, but he shouldn't be the only person that is going to mention it, that is talking there. And so I was questioning, and a lot of people didn't like that. And Postal can speak more to how people have asked about Julian Assange to MPP and haven't gotten an answer. But I just want to put down exactly what they have thus far. So we have a little bit, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we have two graphics that show what their like their stance is regarding defense, regarding the civil liberties. So here it says the whistleblowers have revealed that the overwhelming proportion of U.S. drone victims are civilians. Targets have included hospitals, weddings, and first responders, massacring innocent friends, neighbors, parents, and children while destroying their homes and communities. It's not only barbaric. And so they're talking about banning the use of military weapons, including automated drones, stop invaded foreign airspace and drones, halt the arms race on autonomous weapons by negotiating an interpersonal treaty. And they later on go to talk about, okay, so here's a two-state solution recognizing Palestinians' right to exist. I'm not supportive of a two-state solution. I feel like we can argue on that, but like that's a little bit interesting that they have a two-state solution. But here it is: the defend civil liberties, specifically getting into civil liberties. Americans are the most surveilled people in human history. Studies have shown that mass surveillance suppresses the freedom of speech and freedom of thought, undermining the fabric of free society. By preemptively subjecting everyone to surveillance without a warrant, these programs presume guilt instead of innocence, reversing the foundation of our legal system. Reassert the human right to privacy in the Fourth Amendment, repeal the Patriot Act, and abolish mass surveillance. Affirm the right to free speech and free assembly, strengthen protections and rewards for government and corporate whistleblowers, and increase penalties for those who conceal government crimes and negligence. Abolish government torture, indefinite detention, and extrajudicial assassination. Defend habeas corpus, protect the Freedom of Information Act, and mandate a higher government response rate. Without transparency, there is no accountability. A democracy is only as strong as its freedom of information. People need access to free and uncensored information in order to make informed democratic choices. Access to the internet is no longer a luxury. It is essential to a 21st century democracy, commerce, education, telemedicine, and public safety. Protect net neutrality, classify the internet as a public utility, and bring the country online with high-speed community broadband. Expand public parks, libraries, and community spaces. Okay, so I think this is a good draft. And I'll ask you guys' opinion. I think this is obviously far and beyond what we have in the Democratic Party right now. So obviously it's a winner in that term. But I do feel like it needs to be more specific about the protections against whistleblowers and specific regarding exactly like just more specifics. And because they're talking about access to the internet, it's a little bit vague and broad. I think having somebody that's really, really an expert on this sort of thing, like the people who have been advocating for Julian Assange, would be great. Specifying the specific whistleblowers that should be pardoned would be great. We need specificity because the problem when things are very broad is that you can change them easily. They can be manipulated and you can stick something in there that kind of falls in line with it, but can also be manipulated. So when you're starting a whole party, you're going to be open to these criticisms that people bring, especially people to whom this is such a big deal. And most of those people are journalists who do the work and who are afraid of getting shut down or shut out or in some cases exiled or murdered, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know people who know the subject well, and I'm saying when it comes to Julian Assange, make sure that they get there and a platform and a chance to talk to them. I reached out to Action for Assange today. I said, "Were you guys contacted to talk about this?" Because it was kind of disturbing that we didn't hear any talks about Julian Assange, and the answer was no. So this is a subject that really is kind of missed by a lot of Democrats. They don't talk
and
about
progressives.
This is big avenues. Yeah, progressives are, well, I think neo-progressives forget to talk about it. I don't know if you want to, progressives in general.
In general, they
miss the boat when
don't
it comes
talk
to
about it. Yeah.
They don't. And it's so important because it is a form of fascism that can slip through when you put one voice forward and you suppress another. When the state is putting forth their media, but leaving other media out, you're going to just change the whole narrative. I mean, how do you think we get so many people across this country? How do you think they get so many people across this country to vote against their own interests? Why? They're controlling rhetoric. It's It's something we have to take serious as Americans. If we're serious about all these other things when it comes to Medicare for all, for Green New Deal, I know what you say too, fam. We talk about this. The mind says, let me be able to take care of my health first.
Right.
Let me be able to take care of the planet first. But the bottom line is, in a democratic society, if you don't have the foundations for democracy laid down, which is election integrity, making sure that people's voice counts, and two, our civil liberties are always protected and our freedom of speech is there, you're never going to have those things. And that's why I know it's hard to get people on those things, and it's not sexy, but it's so important right now. And we know better than others. I mean, when you have your own YouTube channel, when you have suppression of voice, it's no joke, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, what they're trying to do us, the way they demonetize us, all our videos are demonetized. They're not shared. They don't go into queues. Why? Because we're talking about things the establishment who is combined with the media don't want us to talk about. They don't want us to, they don't want you to hear it. So
and we don't just
when
mention
our civil liberties are intact. Go ahead, buddy. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And we don't just mention it. I just want to say we don't just gloss over it. We don't just mention it. Like, we literally dive deep into these topics, especially foreign policy, which is one of the things that is really, really lacking on the left. I mean, you can put civil liberties and foreign policy, that is literally not on the radar of the left. And it is so important that it become on the radar. I mean, I agree. I mean, like I said, when you're having a convention where it's so important to have good internet, to have those people be able to express themselves, you have to mention, like, Julian Assange. Like, why is Assange so important? Why do you guys care about this guy? Well, first of all, he shouldn't be in prison. Completely unethical. He was a whistleblower that literally sacrificed his life to give us information, and whatever you feel about him as a person is independent of that. I mean, I just think people have literally read into, oh, he was this, he was that. At the end of the day, this is a journalist. This is a person that is trying to really was trying to inform people. I mean, I wish we had like him right now informing us on what was going on.
We didn't have WikiLeaks this time, and we didn't have WikiLeaks this time to tell us everything that was screwed up last time. And when they went to the courts, you know what I'm saying, the Democratic Party pretty much said, which Niko, the conspiracy theorist about, you know, the election and the Democratic, you know, lawsuit, he pretty much got, you know, Jared Beck got the DNC lawyers to say that the Democratic Party can go in a back room full with cigar smoke and pick whoever they want. I mean, this stuff is just crazy, ladies and gentlemen. And Assange right now, you want to talk about it right now, they can take you down, they can suppress you, they can suspend your channel for quoting or showing anything from WikiLeaks. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, and they're going to kill the messenger, they're going to kill the truth teller, and you're not going to say anything about it. This was a big missed opportunity by MPP. I'm so sorry. You have to be told. You've been exposed. You got to freaking have an Assange expert on. And that's the thing I want to see. You know, is that when we talk about diverse people and stuff and other sides, and there was a lot of things talked about, but there were a lot of things left out, and that's a weakness in the party. When you can't make sure that this is elevated, this conversation, this was a missed opportunity, fam.
Well, I mean, and I understand, like, you know, there's going to be some things you miss, and I get that. But I mean, this is like essential to getting a lot of the independent support. A lot of those other people that may not be as politically aware on other issues that are more social issues. This is a way to kind of build those ties with people that might be more conservative leaning, might be more independent or libertarian. Unlike, hey, they might be okay with Medicare for all and other things if you really take care of these other issues. And so that's why I think it was so important to say. And like, I'm glad we have people like us and the Assange people, which, by the way, will be on this week, because they are going to DC and Action for Assange is, and they're going to be, you know, over there where the action's at. And I want to learn more about that, and I want them to inform people more on that. And I think more progressives need to pay attention to that. So
and those guys, fam, too, they pay attention to bills when it comes to our civil liberties.
Yes,
they talk about that stuff. When you want to know about Julian Assange, civil liberties, Epstein stuff, these guys are great. They do the homework, they bring this stuff out, and it's just not, you know what I'm saying, the civil liberties things they talk about all these bills and what they say moving forward. They understand this stuff, and you got to make sure, if you're running this thing, you got to make sure that one of these people are on. If not them, somebody else who knows Assange well, somebody who's going to talk about this. I would have liked them to talk about the way, you know, YouTube, I don't know if people know this, we keep talking about this channel, YouTube is actually suppressing you if you try and talk about anything from WikiLeaks.
Mm-hmm.
That is, guys, that is lunacy. That is lunacy because the Democratic Party never ever denied all this stuff was said. They just said that it was obtained illegally.
Yeah.
You told me that somebody said this. Well, shoot the person who told you. Come on, guys. Go over to Action for Assange. Sign up. Subscribe. These guys do the work, whether you like them or not, whatever. They're on point that when it comes to the issue they're talking about. This is important, ladies and gentlemen, because the message they're sending, if you don't care about Julian Assange, anybody who brings the truth to light, they're going to kill you. They're going to put you in jail. They're going to lock you up. They're going to throw away your key. We don't have a democracy. Our foundation, our democracy was built on freedom of press.
Bam, did you want to read some super chats real quick?
Glory Jones says, Hawkins tweeting out digital flyers like 2.5 pixels in total. If I vote for a third party, it's La Riva, because without election integrity, screw electoralism. Electoralism.
Okay.
Electoralism.
Electoralism.
Wait, there's one more, right?
Yeah.
Oh, here's two more. Skeptical Mantis. Assange was not the only political prisoner ignored at MPP. Mumia, Jamal Amin, Sundiata, Akoli, Jalil, Mutaquim are a few others not to be mentioned. Skeptical. I hope I didn't mess those names up. And you know something? I don't know a couple of those people there. They hate to say I haven't done my homework, but I'm going to go look into that. And you're right, Skeptical Mantis. Somebody should have been there to talk about these issues. You know what I'm saying? Props to Jimmy Dore for hosting the MPP convention on his site. Over 7,000 watched on Jimmy's
Yeah, let's just say that.
site.
Like, without Jimmy Dore, this convention would not have been as publicized. And I think Jimmy Dore did a lot of work to make sure that happened. So, yeah, props to Jimmy on that for sure. Because some of the neo-progressives were, like, complaining. And I'm just like, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. Like, this man, whether you like him or not, he's against the oligarchy and against the system. And he's giving his large platform to for an opportunity to showcase that. And I think that needs to be heard and said, no matter how you feel about Jimmy or how his criticisms against Bernie don't fly with you. I was a huge Bernie supporter, and I was still able to talk to Jimmy and have that conversation with him.
Yeah.
One of the big things I want to move on to, because it's so important, is the lack of talking about foreign policy. Because basically, Niko mentioned something. Medea Benjamin spoke fully on foreign policy because she's Medea Benjamin, Code Pink. But everybody else didn't really touch on that. And that's another point that's not only representative of MPP, but also the left, who doesn't pay attention to foreign policy. And we kind of read a little bit about where they're at on a little bit of foreign policy. But I was told that there is no foreign policy platform yet, which is a problem to
I don't
me.
understand that, though, fam. How are they saying that, but they're saying they believe in a two-state solution?
Right.
There's no
that is foreign
policy
policy.
platform before, but
Right.
yet you're making a statement about two versus a one-state solution? Explain that to me.
I asked Jerry Perez, because we kind of got into it, and he said, this organization does not have a foreign policy platform yet. It has to be created by the membership next year at the founding convention. I advise you to be a part of that discussion when it happens. Okay, but here's the thing. You should already have, like, every party has their own, like, Green parties have their foreign policy, the Socialists have their own, the Democrats, the Republicans. So I guess Movement for the People's Party is really trying to just let everybody in and then maybe decide voting wise what they want their foreign policy, which I get. But then it's like, where do you stand? Like, you have to have like a foundation of sorts. So I just think it's really interesting. You know, you have a stance on Medicare for all, you have a stance on, a Green New Deal and all this stuff, but you don't have a stance on foreign policy. Is it because of lack of understanding? Is it because of lack of knowledge? I don't know. But we're big foreign policy people because our foreign policy directly is connected to our domestic. There is no separation. Thank you, Tulsi Gabbard, for saying that first before AOC stole it. But I just want to.
But I also want to say too, whatchamacallit said that too, Ben Norton, because Americans don't live on the same planet. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, well, I don't know if he said it like
so
that,
Pasta. He did. He came through. He goes, Americans don't live on the same planet. Like, he even said it, and I was like, geez, Ben, it's so, like, I don't know why
it's
people
so refreshing
this stuff.
when you speak to somebody that knows about foreign policy. But so I just want to bring this point up because I wasn't attacking this woman. Like, I was accused of smearing her. I was not smearing her, but I was saying the only Latino woman we have kind of gave a right-wing talking points regarding Castro. Now, I know Castro is a sore subject to a lot of people. I'm from Florida. Pasta's from Florida. Johnny's from Florida. I lived in Miami when I was little. I grew up with Cubans. I grew up thinking Castro was a brutal dictator. You know, like my father still thinks
we
Castro is a brutal dictator. But I have learned so much about imperialism and foreign policy and how our sanctions and our just embargo of Cuba really did the vast majority of the damage and forced Castro to really like either give in to the U.S. and in order to not give in, he had to take some actions. I'm not saying he was an innocent little lamb. Nobody is in the world of politics and war. But I think if you're going to have people that are speaking, because this person is a member of the Movement for the People's Party, like if it was just another speaker, it wouldn't be a big deal. But when you're a member, I just want to make sure that we understand that MPP doesn't have a foreign policy platform reportedly, and that she doesn't represent necessarily their view, but this is what she said.
She's a vice chair of Our Revolution Los Angeles. She's a candidate for Palmdale City Council. I'm a former special projects director for Cenk Uyghur's congressional campaign and a proud Cuban American in California. And Elise, welcome.
Hi, Nick. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Bienvenidos a todos. My name is Annalise Vinson. I am the vice chair for Our Revolution Los Angeles, a candidate for Palmdale City Council, and a proud member of Movement for a People's Party. The first thing I want to say is, can everybody feel the energy here, or is it just me? I got to tell you guys, I cannot believe the energy right now. So thank you to everybody who's here. Look, today we're all here ourselves and the corporate elite billionaires that run our country. Today, we take our country back. We will be founding a major new party to take on the corruption of the Democratic and Republican establishments. And we will be creating a party that actually represents working class and middle class Americans, not just corporate interests and billionaires. As a Cuban immigrant, I have always felt a special responsibility towards protecting our democracy. When I was 7 years old, my mother and I fled the Castro regime, and we came to the US on a visa. We struggled, and there were times that I could not see the light at the end of the tunnel, and yet we're still here today standing strong. As Latinos, we've been shamed into silence. We're so grateful to be here that we don't speak up. And we are always scared of the persecution that we see both in our brown and Black communities. Today, our silence ends. You see, we are all Americans, and it is our responsibility to fight for our country, to tear down the corrupt system that has oppressed us for so long, and to build a future of equality that we can actually be proud of. The Democratic and Republican parties have been taken over by corruption, greed, and big money corporate interests. They have taken Americans hostage and have used fear to win our votes while squashing dissent. The corrupt criminals that are currently in office have sought to take everything from us. They've sought to take our dignity, our ability to put food on the table, the safety of knowing we have a roof over our heads.
Okay, so overall, like, obviously I agree with her. Like, we need to come together. We need to, like, defeat the establishment. But protecting our democracy is a red flag for me. When people say that, I hear neoliberals say it. I hear the Republicans say it. It is protecting our democracy from what? We're the ones crushing democracies around the world. And so, if this is going to be a Latina, because as a Latina, the only Latina I'm seeing representing is these talking points that I'm like, this is like very like neoliberal, like this is very, like TYT-ish. And then come to find out she worked for Cenk Uyghur, which we know he's not a progressive. And so I just simply brought it up, like thinking Castro, and this is something I want to educate people on. And that's why, like I said, I'm going to start making videos about socialism, communism, and what's going on. Like, where does this stem, this idea that Castro is this brutal dictator? It is America who has created that idea that Castro is a brutal dictator. I am not dismissing the fact that as a Latina, you come to the United States, because I had to do the same thing. My family did. But at the same time, we as Latinos need to be aware of the imperialism behind the way Latin America is, why Latin America is the way it is, and why what actually happened in Cuba was the vast majority of people that escaped during the time of Castro that escaped were actually bourgeoisie, land-owning, pro-slavery, like elites who didn't want to be a part of this, who were under attack under a actual working people's revolution. And that's what happened. And Gloria LaRiva mentioned it last time. I don't know if it was off the show, more so when we were talking, but these are things we need to be educated on. And I would love to educate people on this. And I would love to have Movement for a People's Party have a foreign policy that understands and is in opposition to the Democratic Party. Because if we're going to have freaking Green New Deal, Medicare for all, and, yes, money out of politics, okay, great. And then we're going to have a warmongering, imperialist foreign policy, I might as well stick with the Democrats. And foreign policy is such a big issue because, like I said, it is directly connected to our domestic policy. And if you're going to be if we're going to bring in people to talk about foreign policy, we have to have people that know what they're talking about. Medea Benjamin knows what she's talking about for the most part. And she was the only one talking about it. And then we have this other person that really wasn't really saying that much. And so I didn't see a representation of foreign policy there. I really think that's where we fall. And, like, it's just like with Bernie's candidacy, like everything's great, but the foreign policy wasn't there. So it was going to be the same as usual. And we have to understand that.
Yeah. And when she said we have been shamed into silence, Latino people, I'm like, oh, you didn't meet my partner. So it's like, she ain't shamed and quiet. She's out there screaming.
I mean, I know what she means. I
know what she was saying, but I just thought it was funny because I'm like, you haven't met Fiorella? Okay. But, I mean, even the way we were talking about, the main thing to talk about is the democracy. When she says our democracy has been hijacked by, I'm like, girl, do you know how long it's been hijacked for? It's been hijacked for a long, long, long time. This ain't new stuff. And our imperialism is our imperialism. Any way you want to look at it, you know what I'm saying? We can't say boo about anything, especially when Batista was there at the behead, of the United States and doing what he was doing. He was no, it wasn't like a peaceful society over there and whatnot.
Maria, I'm sorry, I just interrupt you since Johnny has it on the screen. Maria Fonseca posted this documentary looking for Fidel, and she was saying how it shows exactly what happened. And she posted a lot of documentaries under my tweet because I said, Fidel Castro wasn't a brutal dictator. Like, this is what happened, and a lot of people were posting. Yeah, and
good one.
And I'm not showing this, but she did reaffirm her point of view against Castro more thoroughly, saying that he is a brutal dictator and that he did this, and that. And so like I think if you're gonna have a party that has a big tent, obviously we're gonna have to deal with people we disagree with. So I'm all for that, but I'm cautious of not having a foreign policy platform. That's what really, really does it for me, is that how do you not have a foreign policy platform? Because then, dude, we could end up with, if the wrong people come in, you can end up with a right-wing type of foreign policy. And where does that get you?
You should say neoconservative type of foreign policy, because right now, the way everything's going, fam, the left has got more warmongers than the friggin' right nowadays. I mean, that's the crux about it. It's like there's one little sliver on the right that is ideologically against interventionists, and what's going on the left? They vote for everything. They might vote down on a few bills that make them look okay, because I voted against the defense budget. Yeah, but you weren't vocal about hands off Venezuela. You weren't vocal about the coup in Bolivia. You know what I'm saying? You weren't vocal about what went on in Ukraine. You weren't vocal about what's going on in, in Syria and Yemen. You might talk about it after, but you know what I'm saying? You allowed that to happen, and it's just kind of disgusting that we're at this point. Well, I almost fell off my chair when I heard that shit right there. I just pictured in my mind Nelson Mandela and Fidel Castro having that conversation together.
Yep.
And I'm like, wow. He was talking about how Cuba saved them in that apartheid and went and helped them out and stuff, like Cuba. So, I mean,
somehow Fidel is a villain and Nelson Mandela is not. He was a hero. So, again, like, you know, there's nuance to this. I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying I think he was a hero to a lot of people, but I think he was a villain to a lot of people. And I think that could be discussed. But I mean, at the end of the day, we sanctioned the hell out of Cuba. And Steve Wolbrandt just left
them too.
Exactly. Yeah. Steve Wolbrandt just left a super chat saying, Cuba sends out armies of doctors to help other countries. Oh, hold on. Oh, it disappeared. Where'd it go? Hold on.
While you're looking for that one, Justin B said, best reporting around, Convo Couch dropping truth and giving solid, balanced analysis. Wait, this wasn't MPP's founding convention? How many founding conventions will they have between now and 2024? I don't know. That is a good question.
Right.
And the fact that, you know, saying there was no foreign policy on the table, but there was opinions about foreign policy. There was two-state solution. There was the dictator of the Castro
They did have a
regime,
Palestinian, though, on later at some point. So
yes, they did. It said members of MPP cannot submit resolutions for the party to vote on. That power is only for the elites in the party. #corruption.
Steve
I don't know
Wolbrandt.
about that.
Here we go. He sent out armies of doctors to help other countries. America sends out armies of mercenaries to topple legitimate governments. Exactly. That's exactly what we do. And Cuba, like Niko mentioned, has a vaccine right now. You can say whatever you want about Cuba, but they have a vaccine right now. So I think that's worth noting. And there's a couple people that are that I know that are living in Cuba. I should reach out to them. But it's, you know, to me, it's like it obviously wasn't an important issue to a lot of people. And that's really what saddens me the most, because it's so important what we're doing. And any sort of conflict right now could be a nuclear catastrophe. I didn't see anybody talk about China. Talk about, like, you know, what's going on in Belarus, talking about, like, the things that people should be talking about. And I would love to see more voices that are able to talk. Nobody from the gray zone. Nobody. I mean, these are the people that, you know, you want to be talking about foreign policy. So,
yeah. So they messed up. They didn't really talk about elections other than Niko, so they got a little sliver of it. They didn't talk much about our civil policies and left Julian Assange out. They left out good foreign policy whatsoever. So I mean, what do we got? There's areas right there where, you know, once again, I talk about those libertarians that you could bring into the party.
Exactly.
There are leftist libertarians like myself. Hey, I'm for Medicare for all. I don't even want to say a Green New Deal today. I'm for climate policy that's going to save us. You know, I'm for legalizing marijuana across the board. These are things that, you know what I'm saying?
Criminal justice reform. Like, yeah. You're for all those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I just make sure those other things that are a little bit, I think they're the foundations to making sure we get what we want to get, because I believe we're going to have a populist society. And no matter what, whether it be left or right, there's a populist mentality, especially from all the poor people, from the 80% of Americans that are living paycheck to paycheck. They're going to agree on a lot of things. And we get these things down. We cement a real democracy. And if the vote counts, we'll get the people that will represent the majority of us and the majority of our needs, not the choice between Tweedledum and Tweedledummer or Joe Biden and Donald Trump. We'll get a real choice, you know?
Exactly. And another point, Pasta, was that I have yet to see too much on the ground organizing. Now, Jonny said that there was some moments where there was organizing. We went to an event, right, with Movement for the People's Party. We helped organize an event with Crow and the Bernie van at Nancy Pelosi's house with Shahid Buttar. That was a great event for Shahid. He got a lot of people excited.
That's me in the chicken suit, yo.
2 days later, I believe, or a day later, I'm not even joking, is when those accusations against him came out.
Yeah. It was literally 2 days later. We were on our way back, and we couldn't even believe it, you know what I'm saying? But we went out there. We brought so much friggin' energy. You know, we knew some people involved. They came up. There's Christoph. He came up there, whatnot, you know what I'm saying? And we went crazy. I was up on that thing with Shahid Buttar, and the other girl next to us was the coordinator for the Movement for the People's Party. She had the microphone. We were there with her. We were behind it. You can see the People's Bailout all on our cars. We had Movement for the People's Party. So we went up there to support their cause and join them, whatnot, in this protest. And I've always been questioning what they say online is different than when they get into the streets. It seems like it's a little bit off. It seems like they're demanding people to come out and like demanding like Chuck Schumer to walk with them or demanding.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second. I thought our mentality is like, we're done with you. We don't want you near us. Don't come out. Don't do anything. We're not here to work with you. We're here to replace you.
Right.
So I'm a little confused sometimes with the message on the ground from the message online, which needs to be laid out, and I've seen it from one we've done to, there was another protest in New York and I read their demands and what they were doing. They were pretty much saying, you need to get out on the street with us, Chuck Schumer. I'm like, no, he doesn't. I'm like, I'm not going to any party that wants to work with these people whatsoever. My first demand, leave. Your second demand, leave. Your third demand, Democrats, leave. That's it. We're here to replace you. We don't want to work with you anymore. And that's the sentiment you get online. It's got to match when you get to the street. And not for nothing, I'd like to see some good organizers out there that really could get some people out there. Fam, you know these people. You talk to these people. There's so many more freaking so many more organizers that can get bodies out in the street. And that's what you need. You need a presence. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're absolutely right. And I just wanted to say, we went over there. We took our time. We brought David Crow, the Bernie van. You brought your chicken suit, and we were told, oh, I don't know about the chickens. It might be too mean. I started getting on the mic saying a couple things. They thought it was a little too radical. And I'm like, this is the Movement for the People's Party. This is like, you're supposed to be like radical, which isn't radical. It's just, being a humanist. And it was a little bit kind of like jarring because it doesn't fit the social media mold that is really easily put on Twitter. And also the housing, I let Jerry know. I said this was a little bit disorganized. We attempted to do it the week before, but it was like too late. And it was the housing address was wrong. Now Nancy Pelosi changes her address like, she every other day. She tries to avoid, and people are doing the best they can with the organizing. So I am empathetic to that cause, but I felt like there could have been a better way to organize things. I didn't really see too many other big events like that at all. And let's be real, Pasta and I didn't get a single thank you. Nobody said anything to us. Nobody informed us of anything like that. And I understand if you're very, very busy, but so are we. We went to Portland right after that, pretty much. And so, it's these things that are just lacking in the organizing. And Pasta mentioned the organizers that I know, right? And I'm going to be honest and frank. A lot of organizers I know do not want to work with MPP. They had a bad experience in 2016. I'm not going to speak on their behalf, but they have told me that they weren't really trusting of the foundation of it, that they feel it's they left because it was very toxic, disorganized, etc. A lot of these things happen in our movement. We can't necessarily take one person's word for it, but there are a handful of people that I know that don't want to work. I know a lot of great organizers here, and I've tried to get them connected. For some reason, I don't know whose side it's on. It's not happening. And it's because here's the thing, and this is what I really wanted to start closing this segment on, is electoral politics isn't going to save you unless you lay the groundwork. And unless you have people organizing on the ground that are effective and bringing people together, and unless you have people that are doing direct actions all the time, this is the moment to do direct actions. If I were Movement for the People's Party coordinator, I would literally be going out there with the protesters and saying, hi, I'm with Movement for the People's Party. We support your cause. We're going to put police brutality on our platform. We're going to address defunding the police. Here's what we're doing. Support us. We're going to build up a party in 2022, 2024. This is what we're doing. I'm going to march side by side with you. We're going to bring people to help you on your cause, etc. And that's how you build a movement. Because this isn't a movement right now. This is an attempt to start a new party. But how you build a movement is you literally go out in the streets and you tell these politicians, all of them, that you have these demands and you want them met. That's what we need. We need leadership. We have all of this. Movement for the People's Party now has a bigger platform. That convention made them popular. I hope they use that as an opportunity to really create things that need to be out there, because there was a talk about general strike and I really didn't see that pick up. And, you know, and like, I can't do both right now because I would be having to leave what I'm doing here. It is a lot of work. But like, I'm telling you, as someone who is organized and as somebody that knows a lot of organizers, it is essential that it's not just a social media campaign, that you actually get out there and do the work, because people, this is the time is ripe to go after those young people that aren't educated on these issues, to get them involved and to also show them that you are in solidarity with the things that they're doing, and also build connections with other people, with the people who are fighting for Julian Assange, with the people that are fighting for like veganism, whatever, you know, better treatment for animals, with the people that are fighting for criminal justice reform. Insert yourself in that. Do those things that need to get done. Otherwise, it's going to be a social media great thing that happened, and that's it. So that is my concern right now.
And let me say this much too, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of times we just cover these things. I wore a chicken suit. I got on board. I went and protested with people. We go to these protests to cover them, to follow them, to interview them. There was no microphone. I had a bullhorn and a chicken suit, and I was with Movement for the People's Party and Shahid Buttar going after Nancy Pelosi. I joined that protest because I wanted to be a part of that. And you know, let me say this much too as well. You know, we had Jerry on the show when OR was merging with people moving for the People's Party. Nick Brown has been on our show. We went to this protest over here and stuff like that. Let me say something, leadership. You can get mad at us not. Step up. Get people involved. You have to swallow your ego and put it aside and get the people out there who are going to elevate your party. So if you have a personal beef with somebody from Action Assange, too bad. You need them. You want them speaking about civil liberties. You want them speaking about Julian Assange. Get them involved. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you have issues with some of these organizers. Too bad. Bite the bullet. At least do what's good for business. And if you want to grow a party. And that means you got to put your ego aside and elevate voices that need to be heard. And when it comes to the people at top, you know, they got support. Cornel West, Nina Turner, Marianne Williamson, Jimmy Dore, Grant Elwood, Ron Placone, all these people. I love it. Nico House, they were all on it and stuff like that. I want to see more of the grassroots in the streets. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? When we started this thing, Fiorella and I started this thing as activists. We know the people in the streets. Why aren't those people, especially in LA?
Where are they? With you? They're not there. They should be there.
Get off your arse and go get them.
And if they're not there, what is causing that rift? What is causing that rift? And these are grassroots people that I'm talking about, not consultants who've worked for the Democratic Party. And that's one of the issues that some people have, you know, but actual, because otherwise we're going to repeat the Bernie Sanders campaign all over again. And I see people are grasping to get their hopes up on something. And I totally get it. I mean, we're at a point where it's so awful right now. And people are really trying really hard to, like, hopefully something works. Something will save us. I'm sorry to tell you guys, nobody's going to save you. Stop sitting back and expecting electoralism to work for you without doing the work. You have to do the groundwork. You have to address election integrity and the lack of access to ballots that all these third parties are facing. Why start a new party when there are other third parties who have the same issues you're going to run into? So again, there are already other third parties that are way ahead of Movement for the People's Party, and they're still facing the same issues that Movement for People's Party is going to face regarding election integrity. And like I said, not enough was talked about that. So it is all these things that we're saying isn't because we're trying to, like, knock shit down and because we don't like anybody and nothing's good enough for us. It's because we're on the ground too, as Pasta said, so we understand what is going on the ground. We're not just sitting back and saying, yeah, we need this, and that. No, we know what's happening on the ground and where people are at right now. And I went yesterday to Socialist Liberation Party's, like, coalition with they were doing a march for Jacob Blake. It was not Black Lives Matter. It was Socialist Liberation Party. And they had a couple people who were of other organizations who were Black of and of color, but the vast majority of it was Socialist Liberation Party, and they talked about Fred Hampton, they talked about Malcolm X, they didn't just talk about MLK. They went and they spoke about capitalism, and that to me is one of the things that we like. I would like to see from Movement for the People's Party. That same thing that they're doing is something you could do, you could be doing, and it's so big now, and people are so excited that you have the opportunity. Do not waste it. So
yeah, it's funny because we used to complain about the activists in the streets that the organizers is like, they don't know anything about electoral politics. They won't get on it.
Both.
And now it's just like we got some guy who came in who got electoral politics going. Hey man, step up. Get the people on the streets there. This ain't about being upset because we weren't invited or slighted and stuff like that. No, we've been consistent on our message. We want foreign policy. We want Julian Assange to be spoken about. And we want you to get with the grassroots and get people that are going to get people in the streets. We have a whole plethora of these people right now that are hungry. They just got done with the Bernie campaign. They're lost. They're looking for a place to go to. We can't just reach out online. We can't just be Twitter warriors. We got to get in the streets and get those people out there to get out there with us. And Johnny, if you could put that last tweet up for the other thing when I put up with, and I think this is something that our girl, what's her name? Shauna Burley, right? She said, and very simple. I want to support the People's Convention, but I'm going to need them to widen their tent and welcome in our conservative friends. That's the only way we can truly defeat the corporate establishment.
See, I don't know about that, Pasta, because I think some on the left are just not going to do that. So that's what I'm saying. Movement for a People's Party has to decide what are they, because they kind of started out as more like that, and now they're kind of like going more towards the Our Revolution sort of.
Back in 2016, you're saying, right?
Yeah. In 2016. And by the way, they've had 4 years.
It's been 4 years.
And I haven't really seen anything until now. So again, I'm just critical because I don't want Bernie supporters, Tulsi supporters, progressives, whatever the hell you are, to really put their hopes on in something that is going to really waste their time. We don't have time to waste. So that's why it's like I'm protecting people, because I just feel like, dude, if we don't do something now, we need action now, not in 2022, not in 2024. You can electorally be planning for that, but you need action now. And I do agree that a party that is welcoming to conservatives might be successful. But here's the thing, Pasta, and this is why I think we're going to have a multi-party system. People aren't, there are things like race and things like that the left is not going to give in on. They're not going to give in to something that's not, racially inclusive or whatever. And some conservatives might have an issue with that. It depends. I think there are conservatives, though, that can be reached and turn and be like, if we cover these 3 issues, whether it's foreign policy, civil liberties, and, whatever else, election integrity or whatever else, they might be okay with what everything else is being said, as long as they cover those bases. Yes, there are those people that you can reach. And I think I think they need to define exactly what that is. So
well, we talked about that kind of libertarian mindset, the things that we really need to get the Democrats on when it comes to, our civil liberties, our election integrity, our foreign policy and stuff like that. But that's why we always talk about, the economics, because, 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So if we can agree on those things together, that's going to help, the racial divide, the patriarchy, everything, and kind of lift us up. And we can work on those things. At the end of the day, I don't think a lot of conservatives are just necessarily racist. I mean, I just think they look at race differently, and we have to talk to them. We have to have those conversations and stuff, because a lot of people too, they want bread and butter solutions that are going to help them. You know what I'm saying? And
I think
there's things that you can just switch everything around and kind of just like, hey, listen, we just got to prioritize this, but we can't say we don't want to take this off the table. But if we get to the things that we're together on, we can then chip away and work on those things. And believe you me, fam, you know what I'm saying? I have the conversations right now with some intellectual conservatives out there and stuff, and I have to use statistics. And the statistic that always gets them is I say economics, but then I say, you know what? We do, unlike what Nikki Haley says, have racist issues, because there are 8 million more white people in poverty, yet there are more black people in prison. So you cannot ignore that fact. You know what I'm saying? It's just, I think the way we talk about things, fam, if we find a way to come together on certain issues, we can really, really get some people on the right and some people on the left and really build a party. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, once again, it's the messaging, it's the rhetoric, it's the prioritizing. You know what I'm saying?
I think we could have a whole show on how, if that's even possible, because, you know, we can have a whole show on that. You know, you and I, we should do a separate show on just like, is it possible to create a party that's inclusive of everybody with the left? I don't know. I think we could talk about that for hours.
Yeah, there's populist issues, you know what I'm saying? And I think we could do that. It's interesting that the Green Party's going through that right now. SS Breon wrote, I'm done with the Democrats, but I'm still torn between joining the Green Party and MPP. I like both parties. Well, I mean, you don't have to worry about MPP this next election.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody running for president. So
exactly.